Glad to have you join us on the discussion segment on Good Morning Anambra this lovely day, the 29th day of October 2025. My name is Ajuchuku Okebe.
I'm still Nonye Mwokoye, welcome. And you must have heard about the creation of new state, which is trending, either Etiti or Anioma. I don't know which one you're standing in for, but here on Good Morning Anambra show today, we are going to look at that issue and see whether this is going to bring a balance with what the Southeasterners have been crying over the years, that we are being marginalized. All right.
Yeah, in the studio this morning, we have our guest that will be looking into the topic that we have for you, Etiti or Anioma State, Panacea to Southeast Marginalization. And in the studio, we have Barrister Chris Arukwe, who is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Barrister.
Good morning.
Good morning, Barrister. You're welcome to the studio.
Good morning, my people.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We've had this issue since this administration began. It's been going back and forth. It's been going, some have been having it side by side, the issue of the state policing and the rest of it all. And now it has resurfaced again. The National Assembly is saying there is a very much need for us to have this, which was championed in the meeting that they had, where Benjamin Kalu was co-chair of that committee on state creation. And then we are trying to, in that meeting, they deliberated about moving the number of states in Nigeria from 36, as it currently is, with the state, the Federal Capital Territory, to 42, wanting to add additional states to the southeast and to the other regions. But we are talking more on the southeast marginalization because the southeast seems to have only 5 states. So we want to see if maybe by adding extra states, we take away the marginalization of the southeast as compared to other geopolitical zones in Nigeria. What's your take on that, Barrister Chris?
Well, I really didn't understand your specific question.
Yeah.
But I will go.
Creating a state for southeast, does that ease the marginalization that other regions are having more states than what we have here in the southeast?
Yes. Well, let me start globally by saying that the issue of creation of state, the current trending movement in Nigeria today is diversionary and topically meant to sway the people away from the anxieties of the day. If you tell me, I will come back to your question, but I want to cast a global image that the constitution that we rely in arriving at the idea of the creation of these states made creation of states a near impossible task because it is enacted in a way what they call the triple entrenchment in the constitution. It is one of the hardest parts of the constitution that you can amend or you can touch, and you cannot fulfill the requirement, the strict, very strict requirement in creating the states. I can give you an idea how difficult it is to create a state in a civilian atmosphere. You will recall that all the 36 states created in Nigeria were created under military administrations or military fiat. They didn't have strictures, they didn't have constitution, they obeyed. They just woke up, created it, and then created boundary adjustment committees that will go and sort out the mess and all that. But here, the constitution says there has to be an application by the agitating local government or people, forwarded to the House of Reps, and a referendum following under Section 8, Part 1, Chapter 1, Part 2, Section 8 of the Constitution. So they made it so difficult that you also require 2/3 of all the local governments in Nigeria sitting and approving that the so-called Etiti state or Anioma state be created. Etiti. Therefore, and you require also the concurrent consent 2/3 majority of the local government councils approving and giving their consent to the agitation or to the argument for a creation of state. And therefore, if you put that in totality, and then you will also have the subsequent boundary and adjustment committee that will also follow the strictures created in Section 8. The process that creates the state is also the process that will lead to the adjustment of the local government. Because when you take out 3 local governments from Anambra State is left hollow, for example, denied of stability, structural stability. They are no longer exposed to the waterfront. The land mass for meaningful development is also restricted and all that. But I'm not going into all that kind of details. The details I'm just going to say is that economically, we don't need a state creation for balance. We don't need to have all these additional local governments, because the Bureau of Statistics says that it is only 5 states in Nigeria that are viable. Are you just going to create fiefdoms where they share FAC money, have new governors, new retinue of vehicles, SUVs and all that, while in the whole state of the Federation, nothing is actually going on in order to have the welfare of the people at the top notch? So I've given my background on how I feel.
All right, now...
Then let me just answer his question. Then the issue is whether we have Anioma State, for example. Mathematically, if you put it on the table and ask me, between Anioma State and Etiti State, Etiti State, which one actually comes closer to the Igbo notion of equity? I will say that the one that is created inside the existing enclave of the southeastern state makes more economic meaning, makes more moral, social, political meaning, than the one that would supposedly take away the regional water from us, create Onitsha, create Obaro, create parts of Ayamelu, and take it away to beyond the river Niger. Doesn't make geographical sense, territorial sense, doesn't even make legal sense. Because one, natural boundaries are actually landmarks from which demarcations are made. Even in America and all that, what separates one state from the other are big waters. Immediately you cross a river, you're crossing over to another enclave or geographical entity. So immediately we lose our frontal exposure to River Niger, we have lost it all. We are landlocked, and it is over, and it is over. And we may still share the facilities that could come from Niger River, but we may not have pre-occupation rights like the Niger is in our state, that kind of pride. So if you ask me to vote, which one will I take? In the event it is possible that a state be created, I would vote for Etiti State. Okay. Because it makes more economic sense. It makes visual sense.
To the southeast.
It makes visual sense.
Now, there is always a reason for doing anything. You know, our people say a frog or a toad does not run in the afternoon for nothing.
Yes, yes.
And over the years, there have been state creation in Nigeria. And I know that time they have their reason. So, I don't know, this coming up at this point in our lives as Nigerians, what do you think is the reason or the basis for this state creation in the first instance? Yeah.
If you go back to 1957, 67, and the rest of it, the genealogy of state creation, one, it was essentially motivated by political sentiments. Gowon created the 12 states to disorganize the regional system during the during the Civil War, during the matters leading to the Civil War, in order to weaken the total resolve of the southeastern state that bordered up to River State and Cross River and Akwa Ibom today. So that one was politically motivated to achieve a desired end. In subsequent times, it was the case of minority being left out of the scheme of things, and that the minority coagulating together, believing that if they have their own separate statehood, that fortunes will be better for them and all that. And it has begun to spread all over the place, because in every state there are people who kind of feel, a group of people or a section of the state that believe that they're actually minorities. And by giving them a state, they kind of think that they are united with their kin and kith and kins, and they are united with people who share blood with them, who share geography with them, and the rest of it. So most time, the agitation is on the face value beautiful, but the people who are championing it for selfish reason. Who's going to be the governor? Who is going to be the head of service? Who's going to be the new godfather? And who is going to get the new CUVs that will be distributed? Who's going to be the chief judge? Who is going to be the chief new judges to be created and all that? A retinue of revenue will be spent creating the administrative cost overspill. So I do not think, basically, that creating a state is the problem we have. The answer to our quagmire today is about devolution of power, giving the states, the regions, so to say, the power to make their own laws, power to create their own local government at their own will. Because they have told us it is only 5 states in Nigeria that can survive if they stop the sharing of FAC in the next 1 month.
That's the latest.
Yeah. It's not even the latest. It's a lingering statistical reality in Nigeria. Only 5 states. I can name Lagos. I can name Kaduna. I can name Kano.
I know who.
No. I don't think Enugu features there.
They added it.
So I don't want to name anything in the southeast, but I don't know which states in the southeast can actually do well after you take away the 3 states that are regionally capable of surviving outside PAC. So in lieu of that, do you believe that state creation is our problem? State creation is not our problem. Our fundamental problem is about devolution of power. Lisa Abakova was talking on the television the other day, was saying this old constitution can never solve our problem. We don't need to amend constitution. We don't need to jump into the jamboree of amendment that billions of naira have been spent during Ekweremando's time, when he went around the whole place saying that we're doing amendments and all that, call conferences and all that. People were jumping on and around that states are going to, amendments and state creation are going to be done. At the end of it was just a wasted resource. And this time again, it looks like it, and it's going to end up like that. What we need is a simple exercise. Do a referendum in the country, jettison the old constitution, come out with a new breed constitution, a much, much simplified constitution that would remove Sharia, remove the Bible, remove the Christian doctrine, remove everything, make our state a single civic state, full of itself, full of governance of laws. Just go and make your own state constitution. Have your own police. They will not just have the federal crime, the one that the federal government can try. Have your own Supreme Court. Have the semblance of federalism. Full federalism means that states that make up the federation can have articulate institutions like the state itself.
Okay.
Now, still talking about viable states in Nigeria, like one of the papers that we read this morning, where the state debt has climbed to 10.57 trillion naira. And then this wasn't a case of, these are internal debts for this state. And now the state National Assembly are clamoring for the creation of more states, knowing that the one that we have now are struggling, you understand, to survive on their own. Now the question there is, what is there for the National Assembly to gain in not addressing the issues of Nigeria presently as it stands with wastage of funds, which was one of the things that was talked about, that the government needs to cut down on waste? Why is it that the National Assembly don't seem to understand that these are the necessary things to do, but rather could hinking us on the issue of state creation, according to them that the dividends of democracy truly will trickle down to the masses?
Yes, it's, the question you've asked is something that exposes Nigeria and the quality of the legislature we have. The institutions can be strong, can only be strong when you have quality people,
Strong individuals
who are leading those institutions to make them stronger than they should be. We don't have a Senate or the Assembly, House of Representatives, that look like what we have in other climes. We mustn't look at America because we haven't done 100 years near them. We are looking at even Kenya. We are looking at South Africa, where they have a robust parliamentary system. Where they have a strong parliament. You can hear the South African activists that is always speaking and all that. We don't have those kind of people anymore. We have a docile Senate, a Senate that passes a law, gives the governor, the president approval to bring in a 1.2 trillion loan from China. Under 5 hours, the thing is passed. Tomorrow he brings another one that he wants to do a traffic light in Ijabode, and he needs 20 million US dollars, and it will be approved and given to him. So we don't have a pride of place in the Senate. Otherwise, we should be talking about effectiveness of law. The laws that need to be effectively checked is the Electoral Act. Has the Electoral Act been made in such a manner that will produce the result that represents the will of the people? Have we produced laws that will make it impossible for people to win an election under PDP and cross carpet to the APC because there are more juices to eat in APC? Because whenever you're in APC, you're a government child. You cannot be taken to EFCC. You cannot be flogged on the road. You cannot be stopped on the road like the commoners like us. So what we're saying is that we have seen a Senate that does not do any other thing, that approve monies, loans, and other such gestures for the president. That is all that they are at the best at doing. And how will you now have a Senate that accepted the end luxury vehicles that were given to them, complicit, when you have a Senate that earned 200 millions and above in a month under the guise of infrastructure or constituency project, you now begin to see that the governors are more powerful than some of the state governors, because the revenue they collect or discharge on this boss are quite what the state government grapple with. So we have a Senate that is compromised and complicit in what is not right. If we had a Senate that is up and doing, the House of Rep that is up and doing, what we should be talking about is about devolution of powers, because it hasn't worked.
All right, you've really talked about, creation of state not being a problem presently as a people.
It's not a priority.
Yes, I know, it's not a priority. And there are people clamoring for this creation. Now, do you think they've not really looked at every other, factor around and seeing that this is going to balance representation among Nigeria's geopolitical zones? Do you think that they looked at it and see that this could be happening with the creation of new states?
Let me just tell you, the states that are coming from the Eastern region, have you seen anybody, actually, the ordinary persons on the street? you're a journalist. Have you really seen anybody on the street who is struck with the anxieties of the moment, who is struck with hunger and deprivation, who is clamoring for a state? A state that will look like this state he's coming from. A state that might create another minor minority that will lead to another major marginalization. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. There's no end to making of books. The Bible says there's no end to making of books. So you better stop reading. You know, creating of the state is diversionary. The moment of the moment. What is the moment? I've always said this thing in this studio. What is the priority? Priority of scale. What are we supposed to be doing in a place where people are dying?
And knowing Nigeria and what they stand for, so some of the, our elites, how they behave, don't you think this is actually going to make other states to start, other people to start clamoring for more creation of state, that this may not be the end of creation of states in Nigeria?
You just recycled me. What I mean is the type of thing they call rewired narrative. Immediately I get my own. You need to get your own. There's no end to it. That's why I said there's no end to making of books. Okay. It's something that the Bible quoted in Ecclesiastes. You know, so there will not be any end to agitation for creation of state. America hasn't created any state after the amalgamations and all that. The state is not the problem. Give power to the people. Devolve power in such a way that the local government chairman in my state will be powerful, will have resources to tackle my problems. If I have a problem that requires a local government to intervene, I walk up to his office, put up a request to see him, and when he sees him, he notes down my problem and begins to settle it. If I have a erosion challenge in my state, in my local government, the local government chairman is the first person to address it. If it then becomes bigger than the resources he has, he now cries out to the state government for intervention to save lives and property. So, but we now have a weakened local government system that is bereft of structure and personnel, that is bereft of structural stability. It doesn't even have a strong legal basis to exist.
Because the center is not doing what they're supposed to do.
Don't forget that it was a Supreme Court judgment and all that granted them autonomy. Autonomy means sovereignty. Sovereignty to control your resources, sovereignty to control your identity, sovereignty to guard against incursion and exclusion. So the agitation of creation of state should not attract the front page news because it's unworldly. It is only the elites that are championing it. It is the elites that will benefit from it. What the commoners will get from it is to become cleaners in the local government offices that have been
And just
created.
to answer names that they have new state. All right, in case you're just joining us, you're watching Good Morning Anambra show, where we're looking at Etiti or Etiti state, Panacea to Southeast marginalization. At this point, we'd like to take a short break. We'll return after now. Do join us again.
It is a way forward to the development of Southeast because from look of things, the current states covering where the Southeast is situated is not enough. So if the creation of the new states will be a possibility, a reality, it will help in developing the Southeast. We believe that more states will give the citizens of the country and the people of the Southeast opportunity to get closer to the government. We are talking about the Southeast, talking about marginalization. And I think and I believe strongly that creation of more states, giving more states to Southeast may bring the issue of marginalization to rest. People may no longer agitating about marginalization because they have seen that more states have been created, giving people more opportunity, bringing more life to our economy. So that's my submission to that.
I think is the way forward for the new development in the southeast. At least it will help in other recreation and other development in the state to help youth and other people to develop anything they are doing.
Is a way forward. As you can see, other geopolitical zones, they have 6 states, whereas Southeast have only 5 states. But with the addition of these new states, it will make it 6. There's checks and balances, they will be equal. And when there's additional states, more development will come. Development will come to that new state. People will start, many things will start to come. Like development, housing, many things will start to come.
In fact, it's a new thing, not only by the federal government, by the National Assembly, by completing bill on the creation of additional state in the southeast to make it 6. Yeah, talking about development, it will bring lots of advantages to the people in the southeast. You take it economically, you will see that more revenue will come because there is this federation allocation that goes to states, and it will give them another opportunity to have a governor, members of the state assembly, and so on and so forth. So whatever the federal government has been giving to the southeast, it will come to that new state. You know, there is this Southeast Development Commission. Probably, I wouldn't know the area now. If they are rich in probably minerals, it will go a long way to create job opportunity, housing scheme, more institutions in the southeast. So it is going to be a good development.
Parliamentarians telling us on the importance of state creation. So to them, that's what they believe. But every person has his own opinion on what he feels or he or she feels on what's the best. But yet, you're still talking about the issue creating the state, talking about Etiti state and not Ekiti state. We already have Ekiti state existing in Nigeria. The issue is if it's going to be Anioma state or Etiti state.
Apologies on that's right up.
Yeah, the scroll of information. While still talking about it, Barrister, we've heard our street parliamentarians talking. Some said that it will be a welcome development. Somebody is already believing that by the time a state is created, you understand, it might probably be having one political office or the other, you understand, when it comes to its own state. So there is some form of benefit, but holistically, talking about the entity called Nigeria, state policing will, to some people, create more jobs, and some people will have, better wins of, income and the rest of it all. Don't you see that one as part of what the government is trying to do in order to, add to what it is? Because you said something about what we're currently sharing, the 36 states, that if you add extra states to make it 42, that the income, that is the federal allocation would drop, and that some states are already struggling to manage what they are getting from FAC. Can you shed more light on how the balance can actually come with this state creation that the National Assembly is proposing?
The end result of the endeavor of creating a state from Anambra, Imo, Ebonyi, and Imo, because that's what makes up Abia. That's what makes the Etiti state.
Okay.
Etiti state is supposed to be headquartered at Okigwe axis. They have factored it out, but who are the people championing it? The people you just saw their pictures on the television, Benjamin Carlo and all that. And then our Anioma
Is
one.
it the same Benjamin Carroll challenging Oti?
Yes, the same person. He comes from that extraction. I think Bende is part of the Etiti. So what we are saying essentially is that the end product will not, it's not equal to the endeavor. We need more than state creation to stop the marginalization of the Igbos. The marginalization of the Igbos will only stop by the creation of an enabling constitution. Because this thing, marginalization, is ingrained in the brain. The Federal Character Commission has not implemented that when you give one thing to the north, you ought to give to the south. That's the impression that the Federal Character Commission ought to have been championed. But you now discover in Nigeria, where the minister, the CBN governor is from the Yoruba state, the police commissioner is from the Yoruba state, the custom general is from the Yoruba state, the chairman of board of Federal Inland Revenue is from the Yoruba state, the chief of army defense is from Yoruba state, and the chief of the DSS person is from Yoruba state. And all you can go. You cannot begin to think that this is no longer a federal government that made up of the camouflage of all citizens of Nigeria. So it's the same thing when we clamor for state creation. Give us our own state. You create a state that will always be a minority, an ethnic minority. If you create one from my Orumba North, where the Aro people stay, like me, we will begin to agitate for an Aro Ndeni plan to make up a state. So there will always be no end to marginalization, because when we are pushed to one other place, you will find out also there will be a majority in the new state, even in that Etiti. The Okigwe zone might now say, this place is our place, we are sacrificing our land, therefore we are the landlords.
If you produce the government.
They will produce this, will produce this, produce this. And what betide us that we start with a wrong person, and he creates a standard that we cannot escape from. So I do want to say that if we have a responsive and responsible parliament, the problem of Nigeria can be cured.
Actually, my mind was coming to that, whether, you know, this Igbo balance that says, one way camera, because we have always had representatives there, you know, people that are representing the Southeasterners.
Yeah.
There are many there.
Yeah.
Does it mean they are not really doing their job the way they should, that we keep talking about marginalization? Instead of finding a solution to what is already on ground, we are trying to see whether we can get another state when the ones we have is not, you know, what it should be.
Yes, that is chasing the goose and all that. What I have tried to say is that I have tried to ignore the people who represent us in the Senate and in the. I don't want to bring them out for an irascible attack. I do not attack them. But how far have they done their job of even agitating that the Igbos have not been represented? That is where the marginalization is. If in the National Commission for Population, one Igbo man is not there, how do you tell me that that decision to make a new census for Nigeria will work out in favor of the Igbos? If you look at it again, in the constitution of the economic team for Nigeria, and an Igbo man is not there, or a Southerner from Igbo extraction is not there, how is it going to work? And what have you done in telling Mr. President that his appointment has offended the Federal Character Commission Act? There's a law, there's an existing law. And the law, I know, for example, in constituting ministers, where the states made up in Anambra state, for example, made up in the southeastern state, where they're treated fairly, the law actually permits that you have state ministers, ministers of state. And when you now give us a junior minister, and you say that you have given us a minister, legally they are not the same thing. If you say that the Constitution says that every state will have a minimum of one minister, and then what you do is substitute our own. Bianca is a junior minister, answerable to a minister. Under the law, if you're a junior minister, you're not a minister. You may be acting as the minister. But the law says we should have a full-fledged minister. And that is why it is in all the states. I do not think that we even have a substantive minister in the present constitution of the Board of the Ministers. So if you talk about marginalization, it's not about giving us one, you see, the equity of the thing. That's why I just said this topic is actually not as topical as you people kind of think it is. I think it's a play, it's a disruption. The federal character from which our nominees to the Senate or House of Representatives should fight. They have not emptied the law to look at the law and said, we are not going to approve this. Why don't you stage a walkout? Make a broadcast, make a television, whatever, press conference, that this man has offended the law. Even if you complicit with the monies that are...
What of the last administration did the same thing? So this is more like following suit.
Yes. Even if it was done before, must it continue? It is never late to correct an administrative flaw. It is never late. I believe in the capacity for you to make a change. That change can come from them. That agitation can come from them. Not tailoring us, bamboozling us to go and start questioning for states that will not come, states that would they will start even taking money from the people. Monies will now be bundled, money they will need for the committee that's creating this state. And our people believe that these states are already created. If you go to the village, they say, oh, you're not from here again. Or they say you people have moved to Etiti state and all that. Like my own place, Orumba North and South, we're supposed to be moving to Okigwe, to be administered from Okigwe and all that. So there's argument, but it's on a joke level, that people are saying we are no longer Anambra, that we have moved and all that. So if our Orumba North moves with all our landmass, including Umunza with all these landmass, Ndiowu with all these landmass, I'm mentioning Obu and all these people that have land, what is remaining of Anambra State? Anambra State will just be a chicken of a province. So, but what we're talking about is that what concerns us the most. What concerns us the most is power. Devolute, make power to move down to the state, to the local government.
Now, apart from, devolution of power, which you've repeatedly said here,
yes,
as a panacea.
Is the panacea.
Marginalization.
Yes.
Are there other, deeper structural reforms that are needed, to cushion this effect of marginalization on the Southeasterners?
Yes, that one will be personal. It will be personal on the integrity of the president. If he believes, for example, that in the last change in the military structure, no Igbo man was there. Now, Ogla was there, the guy they call Ogla. This one is Aneke from Odi here. He's made Chief of Air Force. Yes. That kind of thing is quite cosmetic. And people have hailed it. If you now constitute the board of CBN, you don't find an Igbo man there. So what are we doing? You constitute the census committee, and the Igbo man is not there. You constitute the Petroleum Act committee and all that. And Igbo man is not in the petroleum sector. And then we are oil producing. Abia is oil producing. Imo is oil producing. So why would we not have a way or decision in the committees that make up all these items? And in the constitution of other important institutions, state institutions, why would an Igbo man not ever venture to be the chairman of ESCC, chairman of the ICPC, chairman of Federal Board of Inland Revenue? Why would he not go round? Why must he be my people? Why must he be my people? So if those ones are started, a broad-based, inclusive Nigeria, it will work. We can wait for the parliament to make move, because people, the legal minds have said the only way we can create a new constitution is to do it through a referendum. A referendum will now say Nigeria is abandoning this constitution because the law guiding the Senate or the parliament cannot dissolve the constitution. They don't have the power. It is when they dissolve the constitution, it's like they're toppling the government, because the constitution is the ground norm, the biggest law of the land. If they topple it, that means there's a change of government legally. So the legal people are saying the only way we can do a new constitution is to do a referendum that this constitution, because the constitution is said, we Nigerians, made by Nigerians, that is the implication of it. And we, the people who can appoint, can now disappoint. Like, if you can appoint somebody, you have also the inherent power to terminate such an appointment. So what we're saying is that the people who constitute this constitution, because in that address page you see, we Nigerians, or we the people, depending on it, the same thing that most liberal constitutions in the world use.
Now, do you really think this proposal is going to affect upcoming elections and regional alliances? If you think so, how do you think that will happen?
Is it the referendum?
Yeah,
or
does the proposal of creation of states, is it going to affect, you know, the elections and regional alliances?
They're using it, of course, that we know that these states will not be created before 2027. What they're using it is for political dividends, for votes buying, for votes dividends. They're going to say, this man, these people are good people. They have given the states, another state for the marginalized eastern region. As if it is that they denied out one state that we are marginalized. It is not because one state is missing from our own group. Okay, you say we are marginalized because of one state. Why create one state across the board again? Are you not placed us in the same equitable situation we were with all of us? Why are we creating? Why don't you just augment our own state and we are in parity?
To be at par with others.
To be at par. So what are we doing? If we don't do 42 states, divide 42 with the monthly FAC revenue and divide it with 36. At least arithmetic says that the one you divide with 36 is more. So it's going to lead to dwindled collectible revenue from the center. And presently, up to 24 states are not viable in Nigeria. There are states that just wait for the fact to drop so that they pay salaries, pay local government people, and then use the rest for their own personal jamboree. And that is what's going on. And that's what's going on. So how many states can survive, pay salaries, pay adequate salaries, not the peanuts that governors are paying, pay adequate salaries. And that is why there's a great distortion. There's no way you can pay somebody 5 million in a state and pay another person a minimum wage of 72,000. Somebody is earning 5 million, just the salary. You don't add other allowances. Then you pay somebody Some of these CBN governors, they receive about 20 million a month and all that. The economy is full of distortion. These are economic distortion that will not allow the economy to work, because we have created a more conscious, class-conscious state.
All right.
All right, so quickly, this one is my own last passing shots before we round up. Our time is actually fast spent. You know, the federal government said that state governors should be accountable to their citizens, because the FAC allocation has increased by over 150%. But yet, it's not being translated in the day-to-day running of the state. Now, with this state creation that you're talking about, saying that 36 divided by the number of states and then what is coming, is there no possibility that the FAC allocation will increase when this creation of states increases, just like it also increased now compared to the last administration? Quickly.
Yes, the so-called burgeoning increase is as a result of inflationary trend, the removal of subsidy. In real terms, I have to be very fair to the governors. In real terms, what has increased? 10,000 naira now is like 200 naira. The purchasing power of 200 naira 5 years ago is like what 10,000 naira will buy. That's why Nigerians are now counting in billions. That's why we have these Igbo billionaires. There are people who we used to call millionaires. Now they now prefer to be called billionaires. So naira has gone to the waters. So bundling up fiscal allocation to the state and saying you have tripled what they collect is also, you're not looking at the inflationary trend where the dollar to naira exchange has plummeted in such a manner that it looks ridiculous. In fact, foreigners ask, how do these Nigerians survive? My cousins overseas ask, how do we survive? I tell my cousins it's on a daily miracle that we survive. How much is fuel? How much is gas? How much is that? And all that and all that. So that figment of thought is also not something we can take home. If you have given them more money, what action are you taking? What monitoring effect are you implementing to stop outflows, corruption, projects that are not directed to people-oriented welfare? Because if you give me money to spend as a committee chairman, there should be an oversight. Has that man started building a private house since I gave him this 100 million to spend on behalf of our committee? That should be oversight.
There should be accountability.
There should be an oversight.
All right. In case you're just joining us, we've been watching Good Morning Anambra show. We were talking Etiti or Anioma State, Panacea for Southeast marginalization. And from the thought we've had here, according to our guest, it can never be a panacea, except there are some things that are needed to be done. For instance, devolution of power, as stated by Chris Arukwe here in the studio, would like to, encourage those in positions of authority to look inward, look deeply, and see the needs of Nigerians beyond their own personal gains if we actually want a better nation. Would like to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
All right, that's just about it and how we're wrapping up Good Morning Anambra for now. And sorry, the discussion segment. We have more coming up on Good Morning Anambra show. Do stay.